Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a topic that it really sits right at the intersection of biology, psychology, and let's be honest, just basic social survival.
It really does.
We are talking about the ability to look at another human being and actually truly understand what is happening inside their head.
It is the ultimate soft skill, isn't it? But it's funny because it's usually treated like some kind of, I don't know, a dark art.
Right, exactly. It's always framed as either a superpower, you're Sherlock Holmes looking at a mud splatter on a shoe and suddenly you know someone's entire life story.
Right.
Or it's framed as manipulation, pickup artist stuff or like CIA interrogation techniques. But the stack of research we're working through today, and we're specifically centering on the comprehensive audiobook, The Art of Reading People. Decode personalities, build connections by mindful literary. It takes a completely different angle.
It really does. And I think that's why this specific source material is so valuable. It argues that reading people isn't about outsmarting them or, tricking them. It's about bridging a gap. There is this massive invisible chasm between what we think we see in someone else's behavior and what is actually going on inside them. This deep dive is really all about closing that gap.
And the stakes of not closing that gap are actually pretty high. It's not just about, oh, did I make a good impression? It's about missed connections, real ones.
Oh, absolutely.
The source opens with this really visceral story that I think we have to start with because it perfectly captures the pain of getting this wrong. It's the coffee shop anecdote.
The coffee shop scenario. I think almost everyone has lived some version of this, unfortunately.
So, okay, picture the scene. The narrator is in his local spot. It's a Tuesday, smells like roasted beans. There's that low hum of conversation. And he spots a woman sitting alone.
Okay.
She's reading a book. Her brow is slightly furrowed. She looks totally absorbed. But here's the thing. The narrator is people watching. And he notices that while her face is concentrated, her shoulders are dropped. She looks relaxed.
Okay, so he's already doing a baseline scan. He's not just looking, he's observing, he's looking for cues.
He thinks he is, but then he catches something. He swears she glances at him once. Then maybe a minute later, again. Just these fleeting little looks over the top of the book.
The ambiguous signal.
The ambiguous signal. Now, pause there. If you're the narrator, what is your brain doing in that exact moment?
Well, the brain is a pattern matching machine, right?
Oh.
And it's also an ego preserving machine. So if he's looking for a connection, his brain takes this totally ambiguous data point at glance and it just slots it into the narrative he wants to be true.
Which is?
He thinks signal received. She's interested. Game on.
Exactly. He feels that little dopamine hit. He thinks, she's waiting for me. She's waiting for me to approach. So he hypes himself up.
They've all been there.
He gathers his courage, walks over to the table, puts on his best, non-threatening smile, opens his mouth to say hello, and the reaction is immediate. She doesn't smile. She flinches. Her body literally recoils. She looks confused, maybe even a little scared, and she packs up her bag in about 10 seconds flat and just walks out the door.
Ouch. That is painful to even hear described.
It's visceral, right? The narrator is just left standing there feeling like a total creep, realizing he completely hallucinated the entire interaction. But here's the question. Did he actually hallucinate it? I mean, did she not look at him?
No, and that's the whole point. That's the crux of why we are doing this today. He didn't hallucinate the glance. She probably did look up. She probably did look in his direction.
Well, what went wrong?
He fell victim to projection with a capital P. She was likely just looking up to think about a sentence she just read, staring into the middle distance, and he just happened to be in her line of fire.
Right.
He projected his own desire for connection onto her solitude. Her glance had nothing to do with him.
So the mission today is to dismantle that projection mechanism. We have to learn to distinguish between what we want to see and what is actually there. But this seems incredibly difficult because, our brains are literally wired to project. How does the source material suggest we even begin to tackle this?
It suggests a layered approach, which I really appreciate because it stops us from just jumping to conclusions.
Okay.
We're going to start with the hardware, the biology and the science of personality, the stuff you're born with. Then we'll move to the software, the exterior signals, body language, the vibe.
Okay, hardware, then software.
Then we get into the glitches, deception, micro-expressions, those subtle little leaks of truth. And finally, this is maybe the most important part. We have to talk about the operating system, the cultural context that runs everything.
I love that framework. Hardware, software, glitches, operating system. Let's start with the hardware. Section 1, the blueprint. The source dives straight into the nature versus nurture debate, which I feel like we've been arguing about for, what, a century?
A century at least.
Where does the science actually stand now?
Well, the science is essentially settled on yes. It's both, obviously. But the source highlights something that I think people often underestimate. The power of the biological factory settings of personality.
The factory settings.
We aren't blank slates. Not even close.
So this is the genetic component, like it's just in your DNA.
Right. Behavioral genetics, particularly twin studies, have shown us that things like temperament are hardwired. It's fascinating. You can find identical twins raised in totally different households, different countries even, who still have the same quirk of nervously tapping your foot or the same baseline level of optimism.
Wow.
That's not learned behavior. That's architecture. That's the blueprint.
So when we talk about architecture, what are we actually talking about? Is it brain structure?
It's brain structure, but it's also the chemical soup your brain swims in. Neurotransmitters.
Dopamine, serotonin.
Exactly. For example, how your brain processes dopamine dramatically affects your novelty seeking. If you have a high baseline requirement for dopamine, you might be a thrill seeker, an entrepreneur, an explorer. You need more stimulation just to feel normal.
Whereas someone else might get that same feeling from, I don't know, finishing a spreadsheet.
Precisely. Or if you have a different serotonin setup, you might be naturally more risk averse or anxious. Your internal alarm system is just more sensitive.
That's fascinating because it takes the judgment out of it. If someone is high strung, we tend to think, oh, they just need to chill out or go to yoga. But you're saying their brain might literally be firing differently.
It's firing differently. They are experiencing a different chemical reality than you are. And that leads us to really the gold standard model for mapping these differences.
Yeah.
The source relies heavily on the Big Five model, or OCEAN.
OCEAN. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Okay, I've seen this before, and I think a lot of our listeners have, but I want to go deeper than just the definitions. The source makes a huge point that these are spectrums, not buckets.
That is the most critical part. It's a total game changer. No one is an extrovert or introvert. That's pop psychology. We are all sitting somewhere on a sliding scale for each of these 5 traits.
A sliding scale.
Think of it like a sound mixing board. Everyone has their own unique setting for each of the 5 faders.
I like that, a mixing board. Okay, let's run through them, and I want to look at how they interact, like you said. Let's start with openness.
O is for openness to experience. This is basically your appetite for the new, for novelty. Someone high in openness loves abstract concepts, art, trying weird foods, traveling without a plan. They're comfortable with ambiguity.
And low openness.
Someone low in openness prefers routine, concrete facts, tradition. They want to know the plan. They want to go to the same vacation spot because they know it's good. There's comfort in the familiar.
Okay, so that's the what. Next is C, conscientiousness. This is the work ethic trait, right? Or am I oversimplifying?
It's more the orderliness trait.
Yeah.
Or reliability. High C is your planner. They make lists. They have a 5-year plan. They show up 5 minutes early for everything. They are disciplined.
And low C.
Low C is more spontaneous, flexible, can be very adaptable, but they can also be perceived as unreliable or disorganized.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the mixing board gets interesting. What happens if you have someone who is high openness but low conscientiousness?
So lots of ideas.
Tons of ideas.
But low follow through.
Exactly. The dreamer. They have a million brilliant ideas for a novel, for a business, for changing the world. But they never actually write the outline. They struggle to execute.
I know that person. I might be that person some days.
We all are. Conversely, what about high conscientiousness with low openness?
So great at executing, but only on the existing plan.
You got it. The bureaucrat or the technician, extremely efficient at following the rules, optimizing the system, but they struggle to innovate or deviate from the plan. They hate ambiguity.
That makes so much sense. It explains why some people are amazing at starting things and just terrible at finishing them, and vice versa. Okay, next. E, extroversion. We usually just think of this as loud versus quiet.
Which is a huge mistake. The source defines it strictly, and I mean strictly, by social energy economics.
Social energy economics. Okay, what does that mean?
It's simple. Do you pay energy to be social, or do you earn energy? That's it. High extroversion implies you recharge your batteries by being around people. You think while you speak. You process externally.
And low extroversion introversion is the opposite.
Right. Social interaction costs you battery life. It can be enjoyable, but it's a drain. You need to go home to a quiet room to plug yourself back in. You process internally before you speak.
That distinction is so important. An introvert can be great at parties. They just need 2 days to recover.
Precisely. And an extrovert can love reading books alone, but if they do it for too long, they start to feel listless and antsy. They need to go talk to someone to feel normal again.
Got it. Okay, agreeableness.
This one is all about social harmony. How much do you value getting along? High agreeableness means you are cooperative, empathetic, trusting. You might be a bit of a people pleaser because conflict is genuinely painful for you.
And low agreeableness, not a people pleaser.
Definitely not. Low agreeableness creates the challenger or the skeptic. They value being right over being liked. They are analytical, competitive, and they have no problem playing devil's advocate. They see debating as a way to find the truth, not as a personal attack.
Which can be really tough for a high agreeableness person to understand. They hear a challenge and think, why are you attacking me?
And the low A person is thinking, I'm not attacking you, I'm stress testing your idea. This is how we make it better. It's a fundamental conflict in operating systems.
Wow. And finally, the big one, neuroticism. That word always sounds so negative. Like, if you call someone neurotic, you're insulting them.
It is a really unfortunate term, but in clinical psychology, it's neutral. It just refers to your sensitivity to negative emotion. Think of it as your internal stress alarm system.
An alarm system. Okay.
High neuroticism means your alarm is sensitive. The smoke detector goes off when you're just making toast. You feel anxiety, sadness, or anger more quickly and more intensely than others. Low neuroticism is emotional stability. You're the rock in a crisis. It takes a 5-alarm fire to set off your alarm.
So if we go back to our mission of reading people, we're essentially trying to, guess where someone sits on these 5 sliders based on their behavior?
You're trying to build a working hypothesis, yes. And this helps us differentiate between temperament and character, which is another key distinction in the book. This one is huge.
Okay, I feel like I use those words interchangeably. What's the difference?
Temperament is the ocean setting. It's the factory setting. It's the hardware you're born with. Character is what you build on top of that hardware. It's the software you write through your choices and values.
Can you give me an example of that distinction in action?
Sure. Let's say you were born with high neuroticism. Your temperament is to get anxious easily. You can't really fix that. It's your wiring. That's your temperament.
Okay.
But your character is how you manage it. Do you lash out at people every time you're anxious? Do you avoid every situation that makes you nervous? Or have you learned through discipline and self-awareness to take a walk, to breathe, to tell people, I'm feeling anxious right now, I need a minute? That's character.
So we can't judge the temperament.
You should have empathy for their temperament. But you can absolutely evaluate someone's character, the choices they make in response to their wiring.
That's a game changer for patients. You realize, okay, this person isn't trying to be difficult.
Right.
They are just fighting a high neuroticism brain right now.
Precisely. It turns judgment into curiosity. Instead of, why are they like this? It becomes, oh, I see their alarm system is going off. I wonder what triggered it.
The source also mentions archetypes as a kind of shorthand for these clusters, the leader, the analyst, and it brings up the ambivert. What's the deal with ambiverts?
The ambivert is, well, most of us. They sit in the middle of the extroversion scale. They are the social chameleons.
Meaning what?
Meaning they can dial up the energy for a party and be the life of it. But then they crash. They absolutely need a day of silence to recover. They can be introspective and thoughtful, but if they're alone too long, they get bored. If you try to read an ambivert based on just one interaction, you'll get it completely wrong.
Because you might see them at the party and label them extrovert.
And then you see them at work the next day, quiet and head down, and you think, what's wrong with them? Are they mad at me? No, they're just recharging. You need to see them in multiple contexts to get an accurate read.
Okay, so that's the internal wiring, the blueprint. But like you said, we can't see neurons firing. We can only see what's on the outside. So let's move to section 2, the exterior. First impressions. The source says we make these judgments in, milliseconds?
It's terrifyingly fast, less than a second. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism from our savannah days. Friend or foe, threat or not. Our brain takes a quick snapshot, posture, grooming, facial expression, and just fills in all the rest.
And this is where the biases live. This is where the halo effect kicks in.
The halo effect is a massive blinder. It is probably one of the most powerful cognitive biases we have. It's the tendency to attribute all sorts of positive qualities to someone just because they have one visible positive quality, which is usually attractiveness or charisma.
So he's well-dressed and handsome, so he must be smart and honest and good at his job.
Exactly. And it happens in hiring all the time. Study after study shows taller men are often perceived as better leaders and are paid more purely based on height. It's insane. And the inverse is the horn effect.
A horn effect.
If someone looks disheveled or has a resting, grumpy face, we subconsciously assume they are lazy or incompetent or unkind, even if they are a brilliant, warm-hearted genius.
And once that first impression, that judgment is locked in, we get stuck in confirmation bias.
Which is the death of reading people accurately. It's the end of curiosity. If I decide you're arrogant in the first 5 seconds because you didn't smile at me, my brain then goes on a mission. It's looking for evidence to prove my initial theory right.
So if you say something humble later, my brain just
ignores it, filters it out.
Right.
But if you interrupt me once, even by accident, my brain screams, aha, see? Arrogant, I knew it. I'm not reading you anymore. I'm just trying to prove myself right.
So how do we break that loop? It seems so automatic.
You have to consciously switch from judging to observing. You have to look at the actual data, which brings us to body language. The source gets into the specifics here, but I want to move past the basics. Everyone knows, don't slouch. What are the real nuances? The biggest nuances in the cluster. This is the number one mistake people make. They do what's called one cue reading.
One cue reading.
They see one cue and make a definitive judgment. Oh, his arms are crossed, he's clothes off. No, stop. Maybe the AC is blasting and he's freezing. Maybe his back hurts. Maybe that's just how he's comfortable sitting.
Right.
You have to look for a cluster of signals that are all pointing in the same direction, a theme.
So it's not just crossed arms. It's crossed arms, PLUS, a clenched jaw, PLUS, leaning away from you, PLUS, giving one-word answers.
Right, that's a cluster. That's a message that says defensive or uninterested. The rule of thumb in the source is you need at least 3 signals pointing the same way to make a reliable reading.
3 signals. Okay, I like that. Let's talk about one of those signals, leaning. The source highlights this as a primary indicator of engagement.
It's pure proximal behavior. It's primal. We move our bodies toward things we value or like. We move away from threats or things that bore us.
And you can't really fake it.
It's very hard to fake. So if you're on a date or in a business meeting, watch the torso. It doesn't lie as much as the face does. We are all trained from childhood to put on a polite smile. We are not trained to control our torso's direction.
So if someone is smiling at you, but their torso and their feet are angled toward the exit,
they want to leave. The smile is for you. The torso is for the door. They're gone.
That's a great tip. Watch the torso and the feet, not just the smile. The source also talks about the vibe, which, it feels a little unscientific. I mean, good vibes only. Yeah. Right. But they define it as emotional energy. Is there actual science there?
There is, in a way. It's about mirror neurons and all the microsignals we transmit unconsciously. When someone is angry, even if they aren't yelling, their breathing changes, become shallower, their muscle tension changes, their jaw might clench, they might be vibrating at a certain frequency. We pick up on that.
So it's not magic, it's just our subconscious picking up on their subconscious.
It's the limbic system talking to the limbic system, completely bypassing the conscious brain. You walk into a room where 2 people just had a fight, and even if they're both smiling, you can feel it. You can feel the tension in the air. That's the vibe.
And the strategy the source suggests for dealing with that energy is matching. This feels counterintuitive. If someone is frantic, shouldn't I be calm?
You'd think so, but no. This is so crucial for building rapport. If someone comes at you with high, chaotic energy, maybe they're stressed and talking a mile a minute, and you just sit there completely still and slow, you aren't calming them down. You're alienating them.
Why?
Because you feel other. You feel disconnected. They feel like you don't get it. To connect, you have to first match their intensity slightly. You validate it, and then you lead them down. It's a classic technique called pacing and leading.
Pacing and leading.
You pace their energy to say, I am with you. I see you. You talk a little faster, you use more gestures, and then once you feel that connection, you slowly bring your own energy down. You start talking slower. You breathe deeper. And because you've established rapport, they will subconsciously follow you down.
It's like tuning a radio. You have to find their frequency first before you can change the station.
That is a perfect analogy. You can't change a station you're not tuned into.
All right, let's go deeper. Section 3. The subtle signals. This is where we get into the real detective work. Voice, micro-expressions. The source calls the voice the vocal landscape.
I love that phrase. The voice is often more honest than the face. The face is the billboard we manage for the world. We practice our smiles in the mirror. We learn to control our expressions. But the voice is physically connected to our diaphragm, our throat muscles. When we are stressed, those muscles tighten involuntarily.
So that high-pitched squeak when someone is nervous, that's not in their head, it's just physics.
It's pure physics. The vocal cords tighten up like guitar strings and the pitch goes up. So when you're reading people, listen for the pitch variance. A sudden jump in pitch can signal excitement, sure, but it often signals anxiety or even deception.
And a lower pitch.
A lower, more resonant pitch signals confidence and relaxation because the body is physically relaxed enough to create that resonance in the chest cavity.
What about cadence? The speed of their speech.
Speed is a great proxy for cognitive load and adrenaline. Fast talking can mean, I'm so excited, I have so many ideas, or it can mean, I'm panicked and I'm trying to control the narrative by not letting you get a word in.
And slow talking.
Slow talking can mean thoughtfulness, or it can mean extreme caution. I'm watching my words very, very carefully because I'm trying not to slip up. Again, you need the cluster. Slow talking plus no eye contact might be deception. Slow talking plus intense eye contact might just be deep thought.
The source brings up the perfect example, the subtext of the phrase, I'm fine.
Universal lie.
Laughs.
Right. The data isn't in the words I'm and fine. It's entirely in the delivery.
100%. Clipped, flat tone. That's anger. I'm fine. Rising inflection at the end. That's uncertainty or a question. I'm fine. A sigh before it. That's resignation. I'm fine. If you only listen to the lyrics, you miss the entire song. You have to listen to the melody.
Listen to the melody. I love that. Okay, let's talk about micro-expressions. These are the flashes of truth that leak out.
This is all based on Paul Ekman's groundbreaking work. A microexpression lasts about 115th to 125th of a second. It is the face reacting to the limbic system, to the raw emotion, before the conscious brain, the prefrontal cortex, can step in and say, whoa, 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 smile, you're at a dinner party.
And the source tells the story of Jane to illustrate this.
Right. This is such a great example of catching a leak. The narrator is at a dinner party, conversation is flowing, everyone is laughing and having a good time. But he watches this woman, Jane, and for just a split second, her face it collapses. The smile drops, the eyes go dead, and then snap, the social smile is right back on. And most people would miss that. They'd just blink and it's gone.
Most people are too busy thinking about what they're going to say next, or they're looking at themselves or the main speaker. But the narrator was watching the reaction. He was observing. And he caught that micro-expression of despair.
So what did he do?
He waited. He found her later, away from the group, and just said quietly, "Hey, are you actually doing okay?" And she just broke down. She was on the verge of quitting her job. Her life was a mess. That tiny flash was her reality breaking through the social mask. He saw it, and that created a real connection.
Wow. There was another one about a boss, Mark. This one felt more strategic, less emotional.
Yes, this was during a presentation. The narrator is pitching a new project. His boss, Mark, is nodding, seemingly on board, looks engaged. But then, for just a moment, a single lip corner curls up. A slight narrowing of the eyes, that's the universal micro-expression for contempt or disgust.
Contempt, oof.
Yeah, or at the very least skepticism, and the narrator stopped.
He didn't just ignore it and plow through his PowerPoint.
No, that's what most of us would do. He stopped and said, "Mark, I'm sensing I might have lost you on that last point, or maybe there's some hesitation there."
And what happened?
It saved the pitch. Mark admitted he had a major reservation about the budget. If the narrator had ignored that micro-expression, Mark would have just silently stewed in his objection and then killed the project later via email. Catching the signal allowed him to address the objection right there in the room.
That brings us to the heavy hitter, deception. Everyone wants to be a human lie detector. How do I know if my kid, my partner, my employee is lying? But the source warns us, there is no single Pinocchio's nose.
No, that is the biggest myth. There is no one sign that means lie. There are only signs of cognitive load and stress.
Cognitive load?
Lying is hard work. It's mentally exhausting. You have to invent a false story, remember the details of that story, suppress the actual truth, and simultaneously monitor the listener to see if they believe you. That takes a lot of brain power.
So the signs of lying are actually just signs of the brain working too hard.
Exactly. That's why you see things like vague language. Liars use phrases like, "to the best of my recollection," or "I might have," or "we sort of just hung out." It's distancing language. It buys them time, and it reduces the cognitive load of having to invent specific, verifiable details.
What about eye contact? The old myth is that liars can't look you in the eye.
That's actually what amateurs do. Most practiced liars know that myth, so they overcompensate. They will stare at you, unblinking. It's too much. It feels unnatural. They are checking, constantly checking. Do you believe me yet? How's this going?
So too much eye contact can be more suspicious than too little.
Often, yes. The extremes are the red flags. Normal eye contact involves looking away occasionally to think. The intense, unbroken stare is often a performance.
And the source suggests a specific questioning technique to uncover this. It says, don't interrogate.
Right. Interrogation is counterproductive. If you ask a direct yes or no question like, did you steal the money? I can just say no. Easy, low cognitive load. But if you ask an open-ended question that requires a narrative, like walk me through your afternoon yesterday, start after lunch and tell me everything you did.
Now I have to invent an entire movie in my head with a timeline and details.
And I have to keep all those details consistent. And that's when the cracks appear. They'll stutter, they'll hesitate, their timeline won't make sense, they'll use vague language. You catch lies not by asking, did you do it, but by increasing the cognitive load until their fabricated story collapses under its own weight.
That is deviously practical. It forces the brain to sprint until it trips over its own feet. Okay, let's zoom out. We've talked about the internal hardware and the external signals, but we can't read people in a vacuum. Section 4, context. If I cross my arms in Japan, does it mean the same thing as if I do it in New York?
Probably not. Cultural baselines are huge, and ignoring them is one of the fastest ways to misread a situation. The source distinguishes between high context and low context cultures.
Okay, break that down for me.
The US, Germany, Australia, Scandinavia, these are generally low context cultures. We value directness. We say what we mean, and we mean what we say. The meaning is in the words themselves. If you're hungry, you say, I'm hungry.
Simple enough. And high context.
Japan, many Arab cultures, parts of Latin America. In these cultures, communication is much more implicit. It's about reading the air, the nonverbals, the relationship. The meaning is in the context around the words. If you are hungry, you might say, oh, the food of this restaurant smells very good. It is the host's job to read the subtext and offer you food.
And if you're a low context person in a high context culture,
you are going to miss every single signal. You'll seem rude and clueless, and they will seem indirect and confusing to you.
Or if the source has that cringe-worthy fish dinner story.
Oh, the fish head. Yes.
A host serves a whole fish, head and all, as a delicacy. He's honoring his guests. The guests are Westerners from a low context culture, and they recoil. They look physically disgusted.
Right. And the host reads that disgust as a personal insult. They hate my culture. They hate my hospitality. He's deeply offended.
But it wasn't about him at all.
Not at all. It was a cultural trigger for the guests regarding food presentation. But because neither side understood the other's cultural context, the connection was completely broken. The host thought they were rude, and the guest thought the food was gross.
That's a perfect example. And context also applies to the immediate environment, right? The room dynamics.
Absolutely. You have to adapt to the room. A professional setting at a law firm requires a different communication style, structured, logical, efficient, than a casual brainstorming session at a tech startup, which might value humor and spontaneity.
And within that room, you have to identify the power structures. Who is the real alpha? And the source says it's not always the loudest person.
It's rarely the loudest person. Often, the true leader, the real decision maker, is the one everyone else glances at before they answer a tough question.
That's a pro tip right there. Watch where the eyes go when a question is asked.
Exactly. The eyes will flick to the source of power for approval or guidance. That's the person you really need to convince.
The source also talks about emotional triggers based on personality types. This ties all the way back to the ocean model.
It does. This is about knowing what makes people tick and what makes them explode. It's about understanding their core values. If you are dealing with a high conscientiousness type A person, their trigger is inefficiency and a loss of control. If you are late to a meeting, or if you ramble without a point, you are physically causing them pain. You are violating their core value.
And if you're dealing with a high agreeableness nurturer type?
Their trigger is conflict or feeling invalidated. If you come in with cold, hard logic and just steamroll their feelings, they will shut down completely. To them, you're not being efficient, you're being a bully. You have to validate their feelings first.
So the universal fix, regardless of the trigger, is validation.
It's the universal solvent for tension. Just saying the words, "I can see why that would be frustrating for you," is incredibly disarming. It doesn't mean you agree with them, it just means you see them. It tells the other person's limbic system, the threat is gone. I am an ally, not an enemy.
I see you. Which brings us to the final and most important section, Section 5, the goal. We aren't doing all of this just to be mentalists or to win negotiations. We're doing it for empathy.
The source is crystal clear on this. Reading people without empathy is just surveillance. It's cold, it's analytical, and it doesn't lead to connection.
And they distinguish between 3 different types of empathy, which I found really useful: cognitive, emotional, and compassionate.
Right. Cognitive empathy is intellectual. It's perspective taking. I understand how you think. I can see your point of view. It's data. Very useful for negotiation.
And emotional empathy.
Emotional empathy is visceral. I feel what you feel. You see someone crying and you feel a pang of sadness in your own chest. It's a powerful bond. But the gold standard, the goal, is compassionate empathy.
Which is what? The combination of the two.
It's the combination plus action. I understand how you think, I feel what you feel, and I am moved to help you. It moves from passive feeling to active engagement. That's the empathy that changes things.
The source ends with a discussion on vulnerability, which seems like a paradox. The idea that to truly read other people, you have to let yourself be read.
It's the key that unlocks everything. There's this amazing story of the family gathering. The narrator is at a big family dinner table where everyone is posturing, talking about their promotions, their kids' perfect grades. It's just a wall of perfection.
I think we've all been at that dinner table.
We have. And the narrator decides to just drop the shield. In the middle of all this bragging, he admits he failed a big project at work. He admits he's scared about the future.
That's a terrifying thing to do in that kind of environment.
It is. But you have to see the reaction. Suddenly the wall comes down. His aunt quietly admits her marriage is struggling. A cousin admits they hate their prestigious job. The reciprocity of vulnerability kicks in. By showing his own cards, the narrator gave everyone else permission to stop bluffing.
And that's where the real connection happens. Not in the performance, but in the truth.
That's the deep dive right there. The source summarizes the whole skill as the people whisperer formula: observation plus empathy plus adaptability. But the expert in the book throws in one final, crucial curveball: self-awareness.
You can't read others if you can't read yourself.
You can't. If I'm feeling tired and cranky, I'm going to interpret your silence as hostility. If I'm feeling happy and optimistic, I might read that exact same silence as peaceful contemplation. My own internal state calibrates the entire instrument. If my instrument is broken or biased, every reading I take will be wrong.
So the journey to understanding other people actually starts in the mirror.
It always does.
That is a powerful place to land this. So for everyone listening, here is the challenge from the source. Don't try to be Sherlock Holmes tomorrow. Don't try to track micro expressions and vocal pitch and body language clusters all at once. You'll just get overwhelmed. Pick one.
Just one thing. Maybe for the next 2 days, just watch baselines. Just notice how your partner or your coworker acts when they are relaxed and happy. Get a clear picture of their normal state so that you can instantly spot when something is off.
Or just listen for the pitch. The next time you're on a phone call, close your eyes and just listen to the music of the voice. Forget the words. Is the melody high and tight or low and resonant?
And remember, the goal isn't to judge them or to catch them in a lie. It's simply to understand them a little better.
The art of reading people. It sounds like a superpower, but at the end of the day, it's a skill and it's one we can all learn. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure. See you next time.